Call the meeting to order, please rise. Keep quiet.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, suppose.
Aldermember Starr.
Here.
Clacty.
Here.
Whitsitt.
Here.
Olson. Crabtree. Kerrigan.
Here.
Mayor Barnum.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Very good. Welcome, all the visitors. Got a crowd tonight. Good to see people here. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. There was no finance committee meeting, but I would take a motion to approve minutes of last meeting, February 4th, minutes of 4th February, and community development. 4th February, it's all part of the consent agenda. And I understand our corrections need to be made to the minutes. You want to go ahead and address those, Alderman Bolson?
Yes, I just asked that they be corrected to include, when Adam Couch spoke. And. I think that's it.
So the minutes will be approved, based on corrections. Or take a motion to approve based on that. The consent agenda.
On the corrections.
Okay. Got a motion second. Got a second from Alderman Plackey, all in favor? 5-0, consent agenda is approved. Marriage report, pretty short tonight. First of all, happy birthday to Mickey.
Thank you.
All right. Got tough out. Tomorrow, I travel to Lee Summit. I'm going to the Missouri Main Street Conference there. It has to do with when chaos hits downtown. Should be some interesting things I can bring back to the downtown collective. And I always like to go, remind people to please register and vote. You've got 2 days left. The 11th is the last day of registered vote. If you haven't, please do so. At last count, which was February 4th, I contacted Jessica White County. She said we had 3,725 people registered to vote in Odessa. And I like to see half those people show up. We got getting kind of tired of this 10 to 13% stuff. That's just not good. So let's get out to vote. Whoever you want to vote for, that's your business. So let's get out to vote. Let's make it never. All right. So that's my going on. Flaherty.
I have nothing to say, sir.
Alderman Kerrigan.
I'll second what you said just like last week. Get out and vote, people. There's a lot of things on the ballot that have a lot of impacts on our community. And if you want your voice to be heard, that's one way you can do it. Another way is to be here tonight like you've done. We appreciate that. Hopefully there's some comments that you can share some of your thoughts. Or the Ward 3 Town Hall that happens every month here on Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Please come and share there. Though that forum, we have an open dialogue with me and Bruce. And then whoever is going to replace me afterwards. So, thank you.
Alderman Bolson.
Nothing tonight.
Alderman Starr.
Nothing tonight.
And Alderman Wilson.
Beautiful day today.
Yes.
Grass is greening up. I miss the country though. But love the town.
I got crocus in the middle of my backyard.
Nothing else, man.
Very good. Thank you. All right. That makes us ready for the city administrator report. Sean.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Board of Aldermen. We'll start with the wastewater department. They have normal operations and maintenance with no current major breakdowns. They did have an after hours call recently that they determined there was no blockage in the line. They had also worked on the Centennial Hills lift station that we've been having some issues with, working with our engineers. They did that during the storm on Friday night, so props to the employees that were out there working on that during the elements. Each year they do a testing, disinfectant testing for both plants, and all the testing has gone well this year, no issues. They do that after everything's sat over the winter. So everything's good there. For finance, we had our internal controls training this past week. We've learned a lot about that process. We discussed today with the department directors, the purchasing policy, the new purchasing policy, and reiterated the protocols for that policy as we approach the new fiscal year. Kathy's been working on finalizing the budget, finalizing the audit. We're planning and preparing for an upcoming internal audit with our auditors. And the auditors will be in town tomorrow to observe the electric inventory process. And we've been working on cleaning up the financials and creating new codes to help us better monitor our financial systems. She's also been working on setting goals with new staff, working on a few economic development projects. As you all know, we've been working on the downtown sidewalk project, working with the contractors and our engineers. And Kathy's been deep diving into the ECA numbers and working on the Public Works RFQ, Public Works Building RFQ. Finalize that. For the street and water department, our superintendent gave a water presentation to the Rotary Club this past week and plans on giving one on the street department here in the upcoming weeks. Crew's been focusing on cleaning out ditches and cleaning out drop inlets as we approach the rainy season. They've been working on street prep work, patching prep as we prepare for our 2026 street plan. They are working to replace a motor on the scraper. Now that we have that repaired, we now need to fix the motor in it. And catching up on water services, we can take a breath of fresh air as locates have calmed down, as fiber is now installed, and our crews can take a break from the numerous amount of locates that they had been doing over the past year. We do have an open position in the street department that will be getting posted as soon as possible. For the police department, we did want to mention the 2 deputies that were killed in the line of duty in Christian County. Our condolences go out to that department and their families. If you notice, we did turn the water tower blue in honor of those 2 deputies. We currently have 44 active cases for code enforcement. We've closed 33 this year, and we have had 12 new opened for the month of February. As mowing season approaches, we anticipate quite a few more cases to open up. We're also working on an informational brochure for our tree maintenance program that will be starting soon. So we'll be sure to provide that information to you all as well as to the public, and that's primarily focused on dead and diseased trees. We have joined the Internet Crimes Against Children program. We've had 2 of our staff have been accepted into that program, which will allow us now the tools and resources that we can use for investigations within Odessa. We now have our MOU with Higginsville for a quick response team. We've met with Higginsville and started the development of that team. We're in the early stages at this point. The last scheduled public event for the public safety sales tax put on by Chief Thompson, Coffee with the Chief, will be this Friday morning at the coffee house. So please join and stop in for a cup of coffee. We've had a couple residents call and request a tour of the current police facility, so that is an option that's available. You can contact the chief and we can set that up for you. We do have a municipal court tomorrow, and no municipal court is scheduled for the month of April due to the election. We did have minimal storm damage from this weekend's storms. We had a small outage, and due to a lightning strike that took out a fuse, it was reported at about a 30-minute outage. There was some minor tree damage and flooding, but crews were able to help. All of our crews from all the different departments were able to help where needed. And then we are working on putting together an RFP and the documentation for the animal control facility that's contingent on budget approval. For the electric department, they have completed the work or about to finalize the work for their Rodmacher plant for their transformer installation. They're also completing the project for Wright Road, which will be completed soon. The power plant roof repair is almost complete. We've done some boring at the new Taco Bell location. Which is almost complete, and then we'll be able to move that from overhead to underground. And we're working on the bid documentation to order the wire for the downtown sidewalk project. And we do have a need for a repair with our generator that's located at the electric plant, which we now have a maintenance contract to be able to get that repair completed. For community development, we're working on updating our current zoning map, so it hasn't been updated in a few years, so we're gonna get that updated and available to the public on the website. And then we're also working on utilizing Laserfish. We're focusing on getting all of the Board of Aldermen documentation and all of our planning and zoning documentation included into Laserfish, which is our records management system. For the city clerk, she's currently out at the annual Spring City Clerks Conference this week, but we did finalize the special event for the farmers market, which will be each Thursday, starting April 9th to October 29th, from 4 to 7 p.m. at Railroad Park. We now have chicken permits, dog permits, and solicitors licenses available to be applied for on the city's website, not just in person. City staff have been working with the public committee on the 250th celebration, along with our fireworks celebration, which we have the fire technician company that we work with. They have had the ability to switch our date, which was originally planned for July 3rd. We're able to switch that to July 4th this year. So the city's fireworks show will be held on July 4th. So please mark your calendars for that. And again, we had a city hall staff training for Laserfish, our records management system. We did that this past week. And that is everything for city clerk. And then I also have, I do want to just I've provided or put together a written statement for the ECA update. So I want to read through that really quickly before we move on to the rest of our agenda. So in regards to the energy cost adjustment update, I want to address a few questions that have been raised and provide a clear update. As many of you know, at the last meeting, I provided a historical overview of the ECA. The ECA dates back to 2005, and the current version of the ordinance in place today was adopted in 2019. Based on our review of our records, residents were not charged an ECA fee prior to April of 2019. If residents review their utility bills, they will see the ECA listed beginning in April of 2019 and continuing to present. By its nature, the ECA varies from month to month. The adjustment reflects the cost of purchased power that the city receives from its electric supplier. Because those costs fluctuate, the ECA will also change from month to month. At this time, the Board of Aldermen has not determined whether refunds will be issued or what the amount of any potential refund may be. City staff are currently reviewing records to determine how far back a refund would apply, if one is necessary, and how any refund process would work. The board will vote on the final decision. There has also been some concern expressed about how these funds have been handled. Funds collected for the electric utility are maintained within the electric fund, which is used only for electric operations, infrastructure, and related services. The electric fund does make a transfer to the general fund, which covers shared services that support the utility, such as utility billing and administrative support. City staff have implemented the ECA calculation using the formula that was developed by engineers at the time the ordinance was implemented in 2019. Staff have continued to follow that formula as it was originally provided. Working with the city's new engineers, we have now developed an updated and simplified calculation. The ordinance being reviewed tonight clarifies and streamlines the ECA formula and removes additional factors that were not specifically referenced in the 2019 ordinance. This updated ordinance will take effect immediately. Finally, I want to clarify one point of confusion regarding tonight's agenda. The ordinance related to the ECA is the only item on the Board of Aldermen that the Board of Aldermen is voting on regarding the ECA. The agenda originally contained a typo referencing an ECA rate study. The rate study being presented is actually a broader review of all electric utility rates, not just the ECA. So I do think the versions that you have tonight in front of you, the board. Again, Karen's not here, so you didn't get the amended agenda brought to you in front of you tonight, but we do have the amended agenda presented on the screen, and that's also what's on the city's website. So just, I do think it created some confusion because the original agenda said ECA rate study. The rate study results that are being presented tonight are for the entire electric utility, not just ECA. That's all I have. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Sean.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. All right, so before we get into public comments, please limit them to 3 minutes. Okay, remember, these are public comments. This isn't a public forum. Don't expect to have dialogue back and forth with the board. Comments are very, very important. The board will listen to them. And hopefully they are, I think they're all ECA addressed. So during our discussions, the board will take into account what your comments are on certain. So just remember, 3 minutes and board, go back and forth. Got it? First up. Mr. Tony Easter. Talk about ECA. Mr. Easter, state your name, your address. Board.
My name's Tony Easter. I live in Ward 1, 210 East Main Street. Honestly, I'm just fed up with it. How it's handled from the word go. Saying this was not about kicking the box down the road is a crummy excuse for dropping a bomb without a plan to fix it. There's a huge difference between being proactive and being reckless. By choosing to go public before finding a fix, the community was given chaos instead of clarity. That's not transparency to me. It's just a lack of compassion for the people that have to deal with the fallout. And I trust our current city leaders will get this fixed. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Vicky Martinez, come on up.
Good evening, my name is Vicky Martinez and I live at 409 East Walnut Street, Odessa, Ward 1. I can't hear you. Sorry, live at 409 East Walnut Street, Odessa, Missouri. I live in Ward 1, making stars at all the districts. And mostly I want to kind of mirror the same thing that Mr. Easter said before, is that the way that this has been handled, I feel has left a lot to desire. I'm grateful that Mr. Whitsitt had brought it to the public's attention. I have been most of my life a long resident of Odessa. I graduated in 1992. I returned to the city of Odessa in 1999, purchased my home in 2015. I have every single bill that I've ever received from the city of Odessa since 2015, if anyone's interested in seeing them. But my biggest concern is, yes, the ECA calculation made its first appearance in April of 2019 for the bill that was due in May 2019. And then the Circa CIRCA made its first appearance 2 months later, and it's been part of our bills ever since. I don't understand, and I'm not going to pretend that I know how to understand the calculation, but I do feel that if we're going to be completely transparent with the citizens of Odessa, that a full audit should be performed from 2019 on when these became part of our utility bill. And I would like to see that residents are also going to be refunded or plan for refund. Because I myself have been on a level pay plan since I purchased my home. I was a single mom with 2 kids. I needed to keep my budget friendly, and in so doing, the city offered that as an option, and I gratefully accepted it. However, in August of 2024, my fiance and his 3 children moved in with me, and we noticed a substantial increase in our utility bills. I'm probably remiss in saying, yes, 3, 4 extra people can make a difference in one's utilities. However, my level payment was extremely surprising when last spring I had a bill due in May of 2015 of over $3,000 for the shortfall that had not been charged to me the entire year. And so I do wonder how much that was a miscalculation of the ECA and CIRCA fees. And considering myself very fortunate that I have funds available to pay this, however, it came at a cost. Many people I know as residents in this city live on fixed incomes, limited incomes, or they don't make enough money to make these kinds of utility payments. And I would like to see an audit be done and be performed with complete full transparency to all citizens in the city of Odessa. And that a plan for reimbursement or refund also be issued. And those are my.
Thank you, ladies, thank you. Michael Walker.
She got me covered.
All right, sir. Gretchen Norman,
Yes.
come on.
My name is Gretchen Dorman. I'm at 206 West Mason Street, apartment A. Just moved in, hasn't even been 2 months.
Okay.
From when I moved in with the deposit and my electric bill, I have paid $608 for water, for sewer, for trash. I called 3 times the month I was there for somebody to come and get the trash. It took 3 phone calls and I'm still charged for trash. I got on the website for City of Odessa residents, so I'm speaking for everybody and I'm speaking for the ones that are not here. They're mad. They're upset. I'll be 67 in August. Single mom, 2 boys. I've always had to work 3 and 4 jobs. I'm tired of working. I work outside of the home. I collect Social Security, but with these bills, it's not enough. I feel like I have to not turn on my lights. I went and got some puck lights because I can't afford the electricity. I don't wash because I'm afraid of electricity. I don't bake. I don't cook. It's miserable. I don't even use my heat. They use the excuse, oh, well, you know, it was cold. I don't use my heat. I like to bundle up. My heat is not on. If I have to do the breaker box, I'll do the breaker box. But this is ridiculous. And I also asked for someone to come out and show me my meter because I don't know, maybe I'm on somebody else's meter. Maybe I'm sharing with the hair salon that just moved in. But my neighbor across the hall, young kid, probably not even 30, his bill was over $500 for 1 month. $500. He works 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. I can't do that. I'll do it if I have to, but I feel like I can't. Well, what about Christmas? What about our lights? You know, and cooking and baking for our family. And I've gotten 300 people on Facebook that they've been robbed. They've been robbed. Why are the streets so bad? What about the potholes? Where I lived, I had to shovel the snow so I could get in and move. I'm just upset, and I'm upset for everybody because it's not right. I never in my life paid $308 for utilities. Never in my life, ever. And I've lived in small towns. I'm from Texas, so I know all about little bitty towns. But this needs to be an audit. It needs to be an audit outside of this area to come in because something's not right. And I've been told that nobody checks the meters.
Okay.
So I know I'm over my 3 minutes, but I'm
show you
speaking for
first.
everybody and I haven't even been here 2 months.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else want to make a public comment for the month? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and knock into all business. There is none. New business, and we'll start with bill number 2026-07. Introduction and reading of bill number 2026-07, amending the city of code regarding electric rates and energy cost adjustment. I want to take a motion to accept, to approve the first reading.
I'll make a motion to introduce first reading of bill number 2026-07, amending the city code regarding electric rates and energy adjustment.
Got a motion second. All in favor? 5-0. Discussion.
Excuse me. Just want to add, I put in front of you guys the formula. It was suggested that if we possibly attach the formula with the ordinance, it could provide more context. The formula was provided by our new engineers and implemented or written into ordinance by our attorneys. There is in the second sentence, sorry, let me pull it up. Here.
While you're looking for that, this is where the amendment comes in that regarding electrical rates is scratched, correct?
Regarding electrical rates. This is
We're not saying
this is a
electrical rates.
temporary, correct. This is a temporary ordinance to simplify the
Just-
ECA calculation only. So the last sentence, it starts with for each 0.01 cent increase or decrease. That should be a continuation of the sentence ahead of itself. So it should say, increase the rates charged all purchasers of electricity from the city for each 0.01 cent increase or decrease. Do you guys see that? Yeah, it'd be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th row.
Just all as one sentence, just remove the period between city and for.
Correct. But this basically simplifies the formula and it adds an further explanation on how we use the 3-month rolling average. Before it just listed 3-month rolling average, but it didn't tell us exactly how to do that. It didn't say the current month plus the 2 preceding. It was kind of vague on what those 3-month rolling average, those 3 months consisted of. So this cleans that up a little. And it also, obviously, the equation prior to included that 12-month rolling average of loss, which helps smooth out the ECA, but that wasn't included in the original 2019 ordinance. So we're taking that out of the formula, and of course, it wasn't in the ordinance to begin with, but not including it in this ordinance. But again, this is a temporary fix to get us through these current months. There's been comment that, we're still charging the incorrect formula. We are not. We have adjusted the formula to its simplest form, and this ordinance revision matches that formula change.
Does this include unbilled hours? Have we discussed whether that's gonna be included in that or not? Because previous ordinance didn't specify, and we were putting unbilled hours or unbilled kilowatts in that. What does this current one say about
I'll
that?
have to have it to that. Let me
I
see.
don't believe it would be possible.
I'm gonna have David speak to that.
I didn't know if it just specified. My laptop's dead, so I'm kind of ignoring it.
So,
Tell everybody who you are to, David.
yes. My name is David Brown. I work with Agro Martin and I'm the new electrical engineer for the city, under contract. So to clarify that question for you.
Yeah.
I tried to put the language in that we are only doing the bill.
Bill, okay.
There
No use of the unbilled or any subtractions or anything on it.
Does anyone have any other questions, especially for David before he sits back down?
He was funny to see.
Before you go to the point, 0.0802 cents per kilowatt hour, that is temporary also until we set the final rates later.
Correct. So part of the study will also include a recommendation for a new ECA rate to be adopted or not, as you see fit.
That, is that part of the packet that was presented with the budget?
That's a part of the total cost of service study.
You're correct.
Thank you.
Anything else for David while we're batting up here? No. Okay. Thanks, sir. All right, any other questions in general or discussion?
I just want to reiterate that this is a temporary and allows us to implement the adjusted formula. So we're not charging the old ECA calculation to residents currently. This helps us align the ordinance with the new adjusted calculation, but it is temporary. After the cost of service study has been presented to you all, we will adopt a new rate ordinance, including the ECA, including the annual adjustment, and including new potentially a new class structure and new rate structure. So that will all be one big package that includes this. So if we move forward, we'll want to make sure that we approve this as an ordinance with the Scribner's error and the attached exhibit or attached formula.
Yeah, to me, this eliminates the reason for the misinterpretation that resulted in the overcharge. The ordinance didn't match the formula didn't match the ordinance, and that's the reason why we're dealing with what we have today. And it's been something that the current board inherited from 7 years ago. So now we're trying to get the two reconciled, and this makes it match. So this solves the problem going forward. We still have to deal with what the rate should be, what the ECA base rate should be, and that will be coming later on.
Okay. Anything else for you, second reading?
Can I say something?
Yes, absolutely.
I was on the board in 2019. I voted for this because it was a formula that they gave to us. And it sounded, I mean, it was a formula. You can't, I don't really know how to say this, you can't really pinpoint in like 3 years from now, this whole thing is gonna be different.
It was presented in a way that took a volatile problem that the city faced and smoothed its rough edges for our customers.
But we, as a board, in 2019, we looked at it, we did not all agree on it, but it passed. And so since 2019, I mean, if you wanna blame somebody, you can blame me. I mean, I've been here the longest. But we felt like that this was a good recommendation for the residents. And like I say, you've got 6 people trying to decide for 5,000 people. And we're sure not gonna make everybody happy. But, you know, it wasn't a mistake. It was something that we did deliberate. It wasn't a mistake. And so now, from now on, it's gonna be changed. And, I mean, I pay the same rates as you guys. I'm a resident. And so I understood that that was part of what my job was. So that's what I have to say. Sorry, if anybody has any questions,
I'll try to answer them. I don't know if I can, but I've been the longest sitting board member now, and this was, at the time, it was a good formula for us. So that's it. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, we'll move to second.
If I could, Shauna suggested two different amendments. If we wanted to make those, that should be proper now before we get to second reading, just for clarity.
You're talking about Scrivener's errors and the,
Adding the formula as an exhibit,
yeah,
if those were wanting to be made.
yeah. Are they wanting to be made? I would assume so.
So that's just a motion to add.
That would just be a motion to make the adjustment to the fifth sentence, which would just make 4 a complete sentence, and add the formula as an exhibit to the ordinance.
Okay, so how do we do it?
A motion to correct the Scrivener's error and to add the formula as an exhibit.
I move to.
Correct the Scrivener's error.
All right, I gotta read through this first, right?
Not yet, we're just doing a motion now. So a motion to correct the Scrivener's error and to add the formula as an exhibit.
And to add the formula as an exhibit. I've said all the other stuff.
Second your motion.
Okay.
Okay. And this is on the second reading.
This would just be a voice vote to approve that motion.
Okay. Got a motion and a second, all in favor? 5-0. So now we move to the second reading. Introduction and reading of bill number 2026-07, amending the city code regarding electric rates and energy cost adjustments with Scrivener's error and the attached formula. Second reading as an ordinance.
Move to approve bill number 2026-07, second reading as an ordinance.
Alderman Carrigan seconds. Roll call.
Alderman Flacty,
Yes.
Whitsitt,
Yes.
Polson,
Yes.
Crabtree, Harrigan,
Yes.
Star.
Yes.
Motion carried, giving it ordinance number 3171.
Moving on to proposed resolution number 2026-09, authorizing the mayor to execute the pool management agreement for the 2026 season with Midwest Pool Management of America Limited. I'm gonna take a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve, resolution number 2026-09, Midwest Pool Management of America.
Second, we have a motion and a second discussion.
Shannon?
Who was our second?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Sorry. Who was our second on that?
Make it.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Hi, so the park board reviewed this, we are comfortable with the proposed plan again this year. Our attorney did mention that they wanted to make sure that they got at least the 3.5 million in liability insurance, and there's actually $4 million. They've got a $2 million general liability and a $2 million in like a umbrella policy, excessive liability. So for 26, the salary part of the budget went up $4,795, which is to be expected with the increase in minimum wage. We didn't feel like that was out of line given those increases. And then the actual management fee part went up $1,840 more, which again is increased with includes so we felt those increases were also fair given, price changes. The salary budget, it's 89,350. That's a not to exceed. So if there's weather, we're not open, it won't go above that. Typically every year we come in to do that.
Questions for Janet? Thank you. Any further discussion? With a motion and a second on the table, I move, vote, all in favor? 5-0, resolution carries. Next up, motion to approve. This is a motion to approve authorizing the mayor to sign a letter of intent. We can have hazardous waste to demonstrate the city of Odessa's commitment to providing hazardous waste services. We take a motion to approve the motion.
Make a motion to approve the motion for Region F hazardous waste abatement.
Second,
So
Alderman Winston seconds, discussion.
staffing cost is covered by,
Yeah, Sean is good, Sean has been interested.
they're not paying for any staffing costs, they're paying for the training. So this is a partnership, so our portion is the staffing, technically speaking. So we felt like having it at the water plant and doing by appointment only would minimize our staffing requirements. Because we have to have an employee at the water plant at all times. So we felt like, if someone does call to make an appointment, that employee can leave the water plant, can go meet that person at the containers, collect their items, and then go back to servicing the water plant with minimal impact to their day-to-day operations that they're doing within the plant. They requested or asked that we do maybe one day a month for like a morning, like every month on the first or the first Monday of the month, we do a half a day where we set up shop at the containers and people can just come and drop things off. But we felt like, because we're using city staffing time, that would take away from our abilities to continue operations as we're providing the service. And so that's why we chose the by appointment only as opposed to a specific day of the month. So, but they are providing, they committed to providing a training for an employee. We are requesting that they provide training to 2 of our employees to increase our coverage if someone's sick or whatever the scenario may be. It allows us to be able to provide the services even more efficient to the people who are needing.
Is there volunteer opportunities or would that be a liability issue? For
It is a liability issue. The only people that are able to collect the items are those that are trained, which is why we wanted to be sure that there were 2 employees trained as opposed to just 1. So those employees will have keys and to the containers so they can lock and control them. The training consists of learning a lot about the different types of hazardous materials, what can be next to each other within the container. If something spills and hits another item, what do you do? How do you clean that up? That type of thing. So, because they are hazardous materials. There's also currently no household hazardous waste program in all of Lafayette County right now. So this is something we've been working on doing, and we saw the opportunity for partnership with Region F, and we've been working with them to try to put this program together. Any questions? Go ahead.
Questions? So who would be providing the containers? Because it doesn't to be.
Yep, Region F would be providing the containers. They would also be responsible for ordering the containers and then coordinating when they're picked up and dropped back off with our staff.
So that doesn't, the city of Odessa wouldn't incur costs with
No.
the pickup, transfer, disposal.
No.
And then, so just to go on record, I think, in my personal opinion, I have a concern with it being at the water plant. Just because I have a concern with it being at the water plant.
I understand your concern, but they are special containers made for this. And they will be at the entrance, so they won't be anywhere near the water that we're providing to our residents. At all. Not even close.
Do we have a maximum allowable quantity that we're gonna accept?
It would just be what's able to be fit into the container. Once the container's full, then we wouldn't be able to take any more appointments until we got a new container.
Do we know the size of the containers? Are they 5 gallons, 1 gallon, 55
No, they're
gallons?
like large shipping containers. Like the yard waste container type of size.
Correct, but when you're gathering waste like that, it has to be overpacked into smaller containers of like units.
Oh.
So that's part of the training.
That's a part.
So that's called an MAQ, maximum allowable quantity. What is our satellite disposition gonna be for that? What are they? Cause that is a concern, even though they are designed quantities, Barrels do leak, they do have problem. Small amounts is okay, but if we get into large amounts,
Yeah. Well,
that could be an issue.
once we go through the training, we can determine if there is, within the training itself, there may be a maximum. But if we wanna create our own maximum within the training program that are willing to allow, I'm sure we can do something like that.
Maximum
We can
should be
work
set by
with-
the state with the permit, what it's usually set by. The training just covers training
Yeah.
of what the
We
people.
wouldn't take anything that the state
Yeah.
wouldn't allow us to take.
Anything else? All right,
And the purpose of it being at the water plant is because the plant has secured fencing. We have concerns with it being like where the trash containers are today, people could just drop off the hazardous waste outside the container. And then we're left to deal with, you know, if it wasn't something we're able to collect, then we have to try to dispose of it. And obviously, there's a reason why it couldn't be disposed of in the first place. So if it's in a secure area, fenced-in area that can only be accessed by employee, that allows some oversight from city staff.
Securing is a requirement stating that you can't have stuff like that out. Is there an opportunity we could put it at the electrical department that has a fence as well? I know it's a lot smaller, we got a lot of more space out there, but. Is there an opportunity to put it somewhere else so we don't have that risk, the potential risk, even though it's very low?
Yeah.
It'd be nice to mitigate it all together.
It's something we can discuss, but
further discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor of approved motion? 5-0. Motion is approved. All right. Next up, presentation of fiscal year 2026-2027 budget assumptions and capital improvement plan.
We made it to the finish line, sent out the final budget numbers to you in your packets. There were a couple of things to note. We really wanted this 9th Street ARPA project to be done in this budget cycle. And the railroad is still holding us up with their right-of-way issues. So we're going to have to continue it into the next year. So I went ahead and built the rest of that project into the next budget year. So that made a pretty good change in the overall budget because of that. On our personnel budgets, the loggers increase came in. And it increased to 10.2 and 10.3, I believe it was, for standard or general and police. So I went ahead and made the adjustments so we can see where that puts us and keeps us balanced with the budget. One thing was pointed out in the fee schedule. I did not update the fee schedule correctly. So, and I'll send this back out to you when we do the other. We are not changing the electric rate from last year. If you remember, we always do a 3% based on what our ordinance has said. We are leaving it flat until we get through this rate study. So, the portion of the rate schedule, the fee schedule will show last year's rates. And then the budget was written according to those as well.
You're saying the budget is accurate to what it should be.
The budget is accurate, the schedule was not updated.
So the fee schedule in the budget,
You got two different things. When you approve this, you're going to approve a fee schedule and you're going to approve a budget. And they kind of rely on each other, but they are two different documents.
yeah, because the fee schedule does have an increase, and it also says, I think there's a typo in it.
That's what I said. I did not update that and that is corrected now. Any questions, thoughts, processes before we go? The plan is to approve the budget at the next board meeting. It does start April 1st, so our departments are anxiously awaiting, trying to get bids put together and requests for proposals and qualifications for the projects that we have coming up.
like you to kind of check my math mentally a little bit, Kathy.
Sure. On what?
Maybe you can. If I own a $250,000 home, market value, 19% assessed value. My assessed value, $47,500. At 53 cents per $100. That means I'm paying 70 cents a day to the city of Odessa for my taxes. $255 a year.
Not much. I don't have that in my head. I can definitely verify that that math is correct, that we don't have a huge property tax here. On your, can you bring this stage up? It's the tax revenue distribution form. It's page 7 in the budget book. You see the lion's share of our property tax revenue does go to the school district. Odessa has the little gray part over there towards the left, the 6.7 goes to our general fund. And then we have a little bitty red part that goes to our parks fund. Those are our taxes for property taxes. So even though I pay however much, $2,500 for my taxes, the city of Odessa is not getting that full $2,500. They're getting close to the $250. Any other questions? Okay.
If there's anything that's been concerning you or anything on your mind, now's the time as opposed to our next meeting.
Okay, we will button this up. I'll get the fee schedule updated and get everything back out to you for approval next in 2 weeks. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right. Mr. David Brown. Presentation on the electric utility rate study.
I was afraid you were doing. I've got a pretty good cold, so if I clear, please have me repeat. And it's probably gonna be worse because I'm gonna put this thing in my mouth so I don't cough. So far it's worked. We don't feel continue. Let me deliver this before I start. Here's your official copy.
Oh, thank you.
Aren't you happy? I'm as happy as I'm.
Special.
Oh, boy. Boy. All right, some comments as I started. I want everyone to understand that this is completely a model set up on the data that I've been given. Yeah, I do my best, great pains I take to make sure that this represents what was shared with me about how your utility works, how your finances work. I can take time to look through your ordinances to make sure that things match, which is, I was on top of this as you were bringing up other things at the same time. I already knew. But what we're gonna have in here is information that we can use to determine what you want to do with the rates going forward to best serve the utility and the community. And I'm gonna show you some things that I don't think you know about where you are right now that may be a shock. Maybe not, maybe you'll know. So here's the topics I chose. I think that will pretty well cover everything. So the first part is what factors go into the costs and the pressures that really drive how energy costs every day. And the next part I will cover will be then the results that are very much specific to your situation and your rates and the way they're constructed currently. I will look at how that cost impacts the rates that you have and where the discrepancies or changes should be. I have actually changed 3 times on what I wanted to say was recommended rates. So take the recommended word here for a little grain of salt, but when I'm done, I will settle on one case. I promise. It won't probably be the one that's labeled right now. I've spent a couple of nights working on this in my head since I finished the study, trying to determine what was best for Odessa. I will cover some alternate rates, obviously, so there'll be 2 or 3 options here. The third thing there, the split commercial and the small and large commercial is one of the things that we'll look at for consideration. And then I'll compare your current rate and your cost of service point to other rates that were chosen from either towns of about the same size, or there's a couple that were actually asked for me to actually look at, so I included those. After that, an interesting, a little bit of information about how your 3%, I'm gonna say quote, 3% increase of your, what was called the AOA adjustment, how that really actually turned out, what was really going on there. It was not 3%, it was a lot less. That's the surprise, but I'll show you. And then a summary with maybe the recommendations still aren't labeled right, but the recommendations overall, and then I'll finish with what my real recommendation is. So next slide, please. These won't be too surprising for most, but there are a few things here that people may or may not know about. Your population growth is currently running less than 1% a year. In fact, from the census of 2023 and the extension of that through models that are used by those organizations, you're running about 54 new people every 10 years, which is only 5 to 6 people a year increase. Now, I've seen decreases, there have been drops. It's not always an increase, but 5.4 people, correct me if I'm wrong, with 5,000 people, that's not even the birth rate. So people are probably leaving more than coming, which is not what we want. So that's not great news. I'm gonna have a lot of those, unfortunately, but, so there wasn't a strong pressure on lowering rates because we don't have more people in the base to help pay for the cost of our power. So it's not as thinned out as we would like. So as you have fewer people, some of the overhead costs don't change. And so things are gonna cost more. So that's no fun. The second problem I have, that's also a positive, not positive for us, but a positive pressure on the pricing, is the wheeling charges charged by Evergy to take power from MPUA's pool and get it to Odessa is increasing. In fact, there was an announcement for this next fiscal year that there's a 23% increase in the wheeling costs every month. It's going to be 23% higher than it was. That's a 4% increase in overall cost. So that's another pressure in the wrong direction. The average all-in cost of MPUA currently runs between $89.94 per megawatt hour, or as you like to see it, usually the 0.08994 dollars per kilowatt hour, and a maximum of $114.9 per megawatt hour. So there was at least one time over the last 3 years where it was excessive, but it was MPUA's cost, and there's not much anybody can do about it, so unfortunately pay it. You know, I'm sure all the cities in the pool were screaming on that day, on that month. All right, also, inflation is obviously still going in the wrong direction. We hope someday that all the promises from above us, that those are gonna come true one day and our inflation is going to slow down or even drop, which would be great. But I'll show you a cost price index chart for you. This shows where we're heading right now. capital improvement and reserve funds are part of the required revenue for a utility. Without them, we can't make repairs, we can't respond to emergencies, and we can't build new service for people who do move in. So those are absolutely heartblood for the utility. And we haven't really been collecting as much of that as is needed. However, we didn't notice because the ECA thing kind of hid some of it. So in the balance, that's also unfortunately a slight positive on pressure on the rates. Yeah, next slide. So I hate starting with all the bad news, but it's how I started too. I didn't enjoy this either. This is a growth chart that looked really nice, but if you could see the scale, you'd realize it's not very great. It's pretty flat, really. The hump line on the bottom that's actually green, I know it's probably hard to see, is actually the rate of change here in Odessa. It ends up at a 0.78% per year increase, at least it wasn't negative. But there was a great big hump way back. We need to recreate that. That would be awesome. This chart has other numbers, but it's really just the same analysis that I've already given. Next slide. This is the cost price index, and the little picture at the bottom right is actually on purpose. It's not just decoration. This is meat, eggs, milk, and I think bread is in this too. So this is across the country, nationwide, looking at the price change of those commodities together. You're to buy one of everything that you typically would buy in a household, and they follow the price. And it is starting to flatten out. Maybe, we hope. I'd like it to come down instead of just flattening. But it has been on an upward trend for a long, long time. I know we all feel that. Next slide. So now we get into the function of how the cost of service actually works. And this is important to understand because when I start looking at how rates are formed and how your cost is right now, we have to understand what it's actually saying. So here's the hard part. Everybody has a different kind of rate structure. Everybody either has it heavy on the base charge, as we call it in Odessa, or the connection charge, or they have a high energy charge, which is your favorite one to look at. I know it was mine, the dollars per kilowatt hour, or they have a large demand charge, or all three. Typically, though, one is elevated, the other one looks really nice and small. And sometimes that's a way to market someone's power to attract people to your town. And some do it really well. So how do we compare two different sets of rates and actually be talking about the same thing? What if somebody's on time of use and somebody's on inverted blocks? I know those don't mean anything. The second one probably doesn't mean anything to most of you. But that's where, as you graduate through certain amounts of use, the rate changes. Inverted, it increases. Decreasing is just called decreasing blocks. Not normally done because we usually try to put pressure on not using so much electricity to reduce the cost to the utility and to everyone else. So this chart, I put the apples and oranges to bananas because it kind of is what we're going to do. We're going to take energy charges and demand charges, connection charges, and we're going to morph them all into dollars per kilowatt hour. That means any chart with a dollar per kilowatt hour from here in talking about a rate is inflated compared to what everyone's used to seeing as a dollar per kilowatt hour because it includes the whole picture. Whatever type rate, it all gets boiled down to what the bill would be at each point of use. And then it's all in one number. So that's what that all says if you read it. So it's a little confusing when you first see it until someone explains what's going on. So hopefully that was enough. Next slide. So now the big hurrah at the end of the study is to arrive at what does your power cost for each rate. And where you were currently is the second number, so 0.1072 is the all-in bananas number for residential. That is actually your current today rate. Some people won't believe that. That's what it is. The very first column is what your cost, the cost to provide that power per kilowatt hour for this utility for you as a resident is 0.1294. Now, the difference in that is 0.0222 dollars per kilowatt hour. That's a 20% difference, almost 21% difference, and you're short of what it actually costs. Commercial, Mr. Witsit, you'll like this number a little better. The cost of service is 0.1383 for commercial, and currently you're at a 0.1421. So sometime in the past, it's evident to me from this that someone made a decision to be nicer to the residents and let commercial carry it. Now, long ago, when I was first here in Kansas City, commerce here in Odessa was amazing. So it makes absolutely perfect sense that someone would kind of lean on that a little bit. The problem is it's kind of left and it's just continued down the same road. It hasn't gotten corrected. Now, I don't know anything about the previous cost of service, and I did not pull anybody else's work apart, but it is evident to me where we're at and that was the plan. And now we're going down the road too far and we need to correct. Industrial, same kind of results, except their current rate's short, just like residential. And the primary meter, I'm gonna tell you, that's the numbers, but I'm not sure how to really look at that, because a lot of times that's a wholesale sale. It's more like they're buying direct from MPUA, but you're getting a little bit off the side for wheeling it kind of in your distribution system and watching over their fusing. So that one, I'm less like, gotta fix it. It's kind of soft, but the other three are very real and it's a problem. Next slide. This again was another way to help you understand these next curves. When you have a use of a certain amount, these curves are set up so that you can see by load factor, which is a weird thing for most. It's how much you use over what was possible to be used. Like if you used it as far as you could go until the transformer was given up on your service, that would be the max. The percent would be how much of that you actually use. So hopefully everybody's less than 50%, but in typical households in the Midwest, most of them are around 37%. And I quoted this number last time, 1,029 kilowatt hours, and it turns out I think I said 1,000 or right at. It turns out your average is actually exactly 1,029 kilowatt hours of use per month. That doesn't mean somebody didn't use 3,000 or somebody didn't use 500. But that's the average. I'm just seeing if there's anything new here. Okay, I've said all that already. I'm always nervous that someone will misinterpret these charts and really lose their minds over it. So here there's a dashed line at the 37% point. Notice the curve starts off high at almost zero use. In fact, that's a 10% use. And as you use more kilowatt hours, what's happening is your connection charge for your type rate is being spread out over more kilowatt hours. So in other words, your minimum bill is your connection charge, even if you use nothing. That would be very expensive per kilowatt hour, divided by zero to the infinite, but that's not realistic.
The connection charge is the base rate, so we refer to it as a base rate.
So you all say base rate, yes. So that gets spread out as you use more power. So that's why the curve goes up at the beginning. So as you use more, that spreads that part of the cost out. What you're left with is the dollar per kilowatt hour as you go further out. Since this is residential, there's no demand charge. So this tells me at the average use is clear down here at this point in this chart. So not very many people are going to get usage up above 50% in this chart. This is really important when we're doing the comparison charts later, because you'll see different rates are above or below depending on how far down the line you go on the load factor. Very important to understand. you're probably not in one part or the other, you're in one spot-ish, kind of float around, kind of in the same place. And then that floats up as winter or really hot days. While we're on cool days, we call them shoulder days, spring days. Next slide. This is the commercial rate. Oh, I probably should have said, maybe we should go back for a second. The upper line is dark. That is the cost of service line. That is where the cost to provide residential class, each one of those points in amount of use to pay for it. So that's what you're paying as a utility or as a city for that point. The red or pink line is where your rate exists currently. So there's a gap. You know, that's a big gap. Next slide. Now you notice that the two colors flip places because commercial was about 2.5% less than their cost of service, or over, sorry, 2.5% over the cost of service in this figure. So the gap is much closer. It's but it's the other way. Next slide. This is the industrial. So there it is, it's below a little bit larger gap. And what's, do I have primary in here? Yeah, I skipped it. So. All right, so originally I came up with a 3-year plan. This will work. I don't know. Here's the deal. This is a 12% on the first step. So that's a 12% increase on the residential. I typically try to stay below 10 or below, but more and more, I looked around at Evergy, I looked at your co-ops, they're doing 14%, 15%, 7, 6% hikes right back to back. So the average lately is more around the 12 to 15%, which I'm not recommending. But it opens this up as more acceptable. And we'll see more reason why here shortly. I'm not going to go into depth on this one because this isn't the one I'm actually going to recommend. Let's go forward. Okay, this is more analysis on each rate for the threes. And that would be how I would present the rate change in a table form. I do have one new note at the very bottom. We have the street lights or your security lights. There's no change to that. The economics of where you are on that actually still works. It's the only good news I think I had. I did a commercial thing. We'll go down there. Next slide. So I was going to offer this just as an alternate because 12% was pretty steep. So let's go to the next. This is a 4-year rate, and yes, there's no way you can read this, but this starts off with just under 6% on the residential. And I've already in my mind, I've already decided I want to modify this one in one way. I would like to hold commercial for 1 year. And the reason I want to do that is for cash flow. If we lower that one at the same time, we're increasing slowly to get to where we should be on the others. We're actually going to be short funds in order to fix the things that need fixed yesterday. Now, yeah. So this one has more of a gentle slope to it. It's a 6%, somewhere around a 5%, and then it's 4, and then 3. And then we would go back to an annual increase, but not quite the way we have it now. Next slide. This is another option that really works. In order to give more relief to the smaller commercial users and leave it or raise it slightly for the larger commercial where they really are inducing costs because of the larger demand. So that lets us not put demand still on a small commercial to encourage commercial to come back in. And at the same time, on the larger commercial who's actually impacting the demand capability of the lines where the real cost is, then we can actually add that on And they still end up with a little less rate on both, but that lets us be even nicer to the small. So this is a really good option. When we looked at the charting, we charted all the commercial, small and large, over a year. And we picked a point at 50%. And it turned out it was really close to 25 kilowatt demand. Now, this is only going to impact commercial. So commercial has its own rules about delivery voltage and other things that set that whole class up, and that would not change. It would just get divided by demand in the middle, which really is about 2/3 up. 50% use turned out to be 2/3 of the customers are small and about 1/3 are large, which is pretty close to normal for most places. Yes, continue. So this chart actually only shows how that split occurs. The case I used, I kept the cost of service full adjustment and then did the adjustment between the two halves and then made the collection of the rate the same. So this could still be adjusted differently depending on if you wanted to do things slower or not. But if you do this one, it does not reduce the income for this overall rate and doesn't really have to have any kind of delay. So this is another option that could go along with the formula. Okay, so. All right, here's something that will be very shocking. These are the towns and utilities that were chosen. Centralia, Evergy, Macon, West Central Electric Co-op, Higginsville, Harrisonville, Independence, and that's it. So what we're gonna see, normally in the report, I would immediately follow the rate sheets. And they're very fun to interpret because they write all kinds of crazy. Especially Evergy is really fun because they have 4 different types of tiers that you have to figure out what's the most common. That's what I used instead of just, they got crazy stuff. Next slide. Now, on this format, there's no way you can see it up close, but let me describe these as best I can. The little tiny dotted red, that's a curve, that's your cost of service where it sits today. And I would guess that for most of those other groups that are right around it, theirs are probably similar to that currently, which means MPUA is not breaking you. They're riding class 2 with all the other independent generation. However, at the very bottom, I'm gonna have to look at this closer. This is why I brought it up here, because I'm too old to see that either. This is when you wish you had one of those whole wall screens. That'd be nice. All right, I'm gonna go down then. From the very top, there's a light blue kind of thick line up there at the very top. That's Higginsville. So they're the winner. For any normal usage pattern for residential, they would have the highest bill, which is interesting. There's a light green that starts off about middle of the big group, and it ends up being second or third right at the 1,029 kilowatt hours. That light green is Harrisonville. There's a dark green that's Evergy. They amazingly are about 4th at the very front, but if you have any normal use at all, pretty soon they come back up and then they're second for a while, and by the time you get to 50%, they're first, which doesn't surprise me at all. The dark purple is Independence, which up there looks kind of a light blue, but it's the bottom of the pack. It's just above the next to last one at the low end, but it immediately gets into the second place from the bottom and then crosses over into third and then becomes, well, the dark purple, sorry, I was following the wrong one. It starts off second from the bottom and then falls down and stays below our cost of service. So they've got a deal somewhere, but that one is Independence. So they're a huge group. So I think that one's probably by scales of people. Is probably how they put it on.
So our cost of service is below Higginsville and Evergy.
It is.
At 30.
That's correct. this orange line is WCEC. At the front, they're crazy high. And that's because their, as you call it, base charge is very high. And so by the time that gets spread out, it spreads pretty fast. I'm not sure how that works out that quickly, but probably because their energy charge is very low, and they've got to be using another rate somewhere to pay that. But the other side is how co-ops work. They carry loans for 30 years on all their equipment upgrades and everything they fix. So they're not really spending as much as you guys would be to keep things running. That's the beauty of a co-op. So. And they all share costs for anything large across the whole group of the co-ops. And that co-op happens to be Associated Electric, which covers Missouri and Oklahoma and a little bit of Arkansas. So it's a huge pool. So that's how they pull that off. This red one at the bottom, can you guess who that is? That's your current rate. It crosses over, if you happen to be a heavy user, it does cross over WCEC. So if you happen to use more like, I think, Mr. Kerrigan, I think you told me last time I was here, you were more in that range.
This is depressing for me.
Yeah, I know.
I'm in that range, like,
Yeah.
so what if I start selling kids?
Oh, there you go. Playing something off
Something's gotta show
or
up.
plug it into the neighbors, right?
Ah,
So here's the big problem. Residential, you can see where you are compared to what things cost. And there is room, and you're gonna have to come up because you can't survive like that. And actually, the extra money possibly out of ECA just offset the fact that your rates were so low. So that you could survive, so you wouldn't feel the pressure, and so you didn't feel it yet. But I feel like you probably heard this story last time, and I'm gonna get into why we're still hearing this story this time. As much as I hate telling the story. Next slide's commercial. We'll go ahead and look at it a little bit here. I definitely have to look at mine on that one. That top one is Evergy. Harrisonville's second. I find it interesting on commercial that they kind of stay out separate where it's easier to see them. But the dark red there is your current rate. So this one, you're kind of in the middle of this grouping. So thus we noted it's only 2.5% off your cost of service. It's not surprising that it's kind of in the group where everybody else is. This pea green one is Stevensville. And there's a black one hiding back there, Centralia, but they're buried by a couple others. The purple is Macon, they're way down. And then WCC, which probably doesn't have a ton of commercial, but they're still somehow giving it away.
Another thing we talked about too is like what you were talking about with the co-op and their pool being they're in a large pool, but they're able to purchase power significantly cheaper than what we are able to purchase power for.
Yeah, there's a big difference. In an IOU, they will install base power load generation, usually coal, oil, natural gas. Their peaking units, you can do natural gas that way too. They're more expensive. They don't run very much. Like the diesel now is kind of in that group. And so in an IOU, they mix theirs all up. They have water power and every type, everything they can grab a hold of and invest in, they've got. So they can apply the right generation to exactly the type demand. And that lowers their cost in a sense, but they have other high overhead because they want to keep the money. They're not friendly like your muni or your co-op. They're not worried about making money. They want to make money. They don't care if they make money. So they make lots of money. So their rates tend to be up because of that, for shareholders' sake. Your muni though, in the MOPEP type pool, all the cities are using what traditionally wasn't really base load power. It's actually a peaking unit that we maintain and rotate units to keep them alive. But the reason it works is they're already generating their own power at their own control and they have extra, so they throw it in the pool. And so it's not as expensive, as you all know, not as expensive as running your own. So you're still bought in because in the past you did, and you also shared. And so that was great, but it's still more expensive because they're more like peaking units. You know, it's not a nuclear plant that's just constant. It's something that you have to feed heavy and run it for a while and shut it off and clean it, do it again. That's typical of peaking. So they're higher cost. So just the nature of that is hard to beat. The co-op has the advantage of being so large, but they also have some peaking and some really good base power units, which lowers their cost even more. So the differences there are very important to understand. I think that's what you want me to cover.
Yes.
Yes. All right, so next chart. Yeah, one more, industrial. One more. So industrial, just to point out, since it's hard to see, Evergy's on the top. Until you get out past about 60%. By the way, industrial, your your load factor is probably gonna run more than 60 to 75%, unlike your residential and commercial. So as you go up in these classes, your percent load factor goes higher. The black one there is the cost of service that everybody's shooting for. The light blue is the next one for a while, and then it drops to the bottom. Of course, that's WCC. Higginsville's next. And then an interesting one on this industrial, this is the first one you've seen that's flat. That's not a mistake down there. That's actually Centralia. I don't know what they're doing, but they're not charging a connection fee, they're industrial. Flat. Very strange. But that's their issue. All right, now we're gonna get into something weird. In case you didn't think that one. All right, the annual increase. I'm gonna add some information here because I just learned it the day before I gave this all over. We've been talking about a 3% per year annual increase to your rates, and it's not the way it's calculated. It turned out to be less than 1% per year. The reason is built into it was this only updating the difference between the ECA rates and your rates by 3%. So you took 90% of it out and then you raised that 3% and added it. Well, that's not 3% across the entire rate. So at first I was surprised when I was looking at the result and couldn't understand what had happened. But later I saw a statement that was in the past cost of service because I did not pull that one apart. It wasn't relevant to me at the time. The rates at the end of it were, but not the rest of it. Turned out this part was. She was shooting for, that engineer was shooting for about a 1.67%. But that annual increase to be 1.67% also leaned on a 3-year rate plan change that did not occur. So I only have 2 assumptions I can make about that. One, for some reason, her information was skewed that she was going from, and so she missed the mark. Didn't seem like it because it's addressed. The real situation is probably we didn't do the 3-year rate increase that was requested and then start the annual increases. We just went straight into the annual increases. It was meant to be a small maintenance increase after everything was back to normal, back to cost of service, and it never got to cost of service. So that small increase didn't do as much as it would have done. So because of that, we still have a big gap. Okay, the other part of this is the other increases with the other, I kind of mixed topics on this slide. The rate changes at Independence included a 50% increase in their connection charge and 2 6% increases. I didn't put it in here, but that's about a 37% increase overall. As we've been looking at it like bananas. Independent small commercial rate had a 66.6% increase in connectivity. And they also had a 25% for the large commercial. Average, you had 2 rate increases in the last 4 years, 6.9 and 4.1, which probably moved about 11-12%. So anyway, just, I wanted to document, ended up with it on this chart. Next. All right. I know I should have turned the background light on this one too. Those have been working very well. This is the only one I left the gray background on, and I apologize. The yellow line that looks like a ghost, it's in between that teal and the dark one on top. Hopefully you can kind of see that. Again, I can't read my own stuff from here. The top line is no surprise. The black one is the COS. So that's your cost of service for residential class. I'm only looking at residential on this one. The yellow line is where your rate changed to from the 3% for 6 years. If you start at the 21-22 rates, which is that bottom red or pink, that bottom pink line. So in 21-22 fiscal year, you were at the pink, and then the AOA sheet made this, oh, that's right, it made this teal line. So that was where you ended up is that teal line. The yellow is where you would have ended up if you were doing a full 3%. And if you had done the other changes and then done that 3% the way she prescribed, you're pretty close to that same line. It ends up right in there. So that's where I think the intent was to bring you to, and then you would have only had a shortfall of about 10 to 12% to make up, and that would be a lot more comfortable to do. So last slide. So in summary, the 3% increases really only increased you around 2.1 in the highest rate that changed, and about 1.67 in the residential. So just under 2% over the 4 years. You still have a large gap, 20% plus to the actual cost of service on residential. Rates have been really light on residential and slightly heavy on commercial by 2.5%. Industrial and primary metered still very competitive, but are still below cost of service. Other utilities have had greater than 10% rate increases in the last 4 years, where you have only had less than 2%, pretty much across everything. So the recommended is the 4-year rate plan that would be a 6% increase upfront for residential and industrial, a 2.5% decrease. I'd rather do the split. This is where I don't agree with my own slide. I'd rather split commercial and small and large and do the small decrease than to do this 2.5% across the board. But that's up to you all as to how you want to do that. And then continue the 4-year rate, and then of course I'm saying split the commercial there. And then actually one more line I would put back in here. I would prescribe another annual rate increase after the 4, a very small maintenance, but done in a way that's actually more effectual. And we'd have to determine that at that point, because I don't want to give that to you as a sheet at this point and then have this happen again. I want to make sure you choose the best of the 3 or the 4-year plan that fits what you need, or give me another alternative and I'll do that calculation. At this point, I have the model set up and it's very easy for me to come up with another set of working rates. As long as we don't change direction. So with that, concludes my report on the cost of service and the best I could do for your recommended rates.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions for Dave?
I have a few. I like your recommendations. You mentioned the 1% growth, so your projected rates are based on 1% growth. What happens if we hit 3% or 5%?
That'll help. So So it's important, I think, if you find that that is occurring, now that you know what the baselines are, it would be good to holler and let me just do a quick checkup. Be happy to do that.
Would the impact of that be that rates would tend to go up or down for us?
Down.
Okay.
Or at least not increase as fast.
You mentioned the all-in rate was, I converted it to cents per kilowatt, 8.944 cents per kilowatt.
That is MPUA's cost.
Okay,
That's not your all-in rate, that was theirs. So that's your purchase cost.
our ECA base rate is 0.0802.
Correct.
Should our ECA base rate be increased
Oh, yes.
to that 8994?
Actually, I would go a little further than that. Based on the fact that the trend is up right now, the last more than almost a year, get to a year. It's been increasing at a pretty quick pace, and it hasn't hit that 4% increase yet for wheeling. So my belief is it's gonna continue out for a while before it falls flat again. So, yeah, it's gonna have to.
So that increase in the ECA base rate would decrease the dollar amount of that ECA charge.
That's correct.
So the kilowatt usage rate would go up, but the ECA charge would go down. Not in offsetting amounts, but it would go down some.
Correct. It will not be a full offset, but over the last 7 to 8 months, their ECA, even if it was calculated with the new calculation, is on the increase because of that MPUA increase. So we want to track closer to the average, and that's so it's just not crazy ahead for no reason. We'd rather adjust that flat and then reassess the rates as we go along to make those match because it's less volatile.
Your assumptions, I'm guessing, probably assume that streetlights and park utilities continue as they are.
I did not change how they are in the system, correct?
Okay, and I don't think that would affect the rates very much at all if it was paid out of general funds, but
Right.
I think it'd be pretty minimal. How can we lower the cost of service? If we invested in peak shaving, solar, is there anything we can do to lower our cost of service to become more competitive? I'm really happy that, and I hope we figure out a way of converting your charts into some economic development materials to show people that Odessa is a good place to invest in. And,
Yes.
you know, our utilities aren't as expensive as EIA shows that it is.
Correct.
But what can we invest in to be more competitive?
So one of the things we do want to pursue at some point is your time of use. That will help, but it does exactly that. You're just shifting the peak off of their peak. So they'll back off their charge a little bit because you're helping them. MPUA being them. That would it was gonna take a bigger amount of time than you all had time for with everything that's going on. And it being the end of fiscal year, it was like the wrong timing to try to attempt that. The reason being, I have to have a lot more data to look at the actual use by hour of a large enough pool of your meters to be able to make sure we're picking the right windows, so we're not being punitive and being helpful, you know.
Right. I recall they gave us a chart back in May, I think it was, that showed our usage, the pricing for our usage in May went anywhere from $10 per megawatt up to $45 at a peak.
Yes,
So,
and every MPUA bill, I know this, I didn't get any from you, but the second page includes an average cost to MPUA to operate the pool as a whole. And if you've ever looked at one of those, they go from very, very dark red, 100, 124, 130 crazy numbers per megawatt hour, all the way down to nice and green that you like, more like the 70, 60 range. Once in a while, the 40, which is kind of surprising. Not sure how to do that. So during the time of use to get off their coincident peak, the time when they peak is gonna help some. But from what I saw, it's only about a 10 to 15% effective way to lower, but it's a lower. So every bit helps, but it's a little more difficult to implement. Although you have the right metering, you have the right metering company that knows how to do those. It's just a matter of being able to figure out where we want the window. I don't know if that helps you with your question or comment there.
Also have the system study too that we're about to start. That will help.
So something that's driven me crazy a little bit during this, usually I have an old system study to kind of lean on a little bit, and or a capacity study, which we really don't have for Odessa. So without that system plan, it was difficult in some areas to make assessment of exactly what growth to guess at. It made my ball a little cloudy, my crystal ball. But now that we're all set up, we're ready to do the system study. It will go through all the metering. We'll look at all your impulse meter data and we'll look for anomalies. I've heard some comments tonight about some anomalies that I would like to find. And then when we do that, we know kind of what average is for a business, for a house, for a larger house, you know. And then we actually do a little bit of our Google Earth. Us engineers, we really aren't Google Earth engineers, but we play with it a lot. Because you can look at a meter at an address that's weird, and you can look and go, oh, look, 2 swimming pools and 4-story house, and okay, and they got a Tesla out front, okay, I get it. Or you look and it's a shack, and they're using as much as McDonald's, and you're like, what's going on? So we do some of that, so it's a bit of an audit to the billing and to the usage. I wouldn't say it's on purpose, but it's very directed. I mean, we go through it 3 times. Sometimes you find addresses where the metering is for some reason reporting single phase when it's 3-phase. And that's also something you can see in Google most of the time. And if not, we'll be calling back here to get your utility guys to go look what's going on there and make sure we have the right information. So we're handling it the right way. So that's coming, I assume, in April. It'll take usually about 4 months, but we're gonna try to do our best to keep that as short as possible, like everything else. But those 2 pieces kind of go together. As I understand your system better, I have a better feel for, is it gonna go 3%, 5%, 2%, nothing? And I have to apply that. We're gonna stress the system, hopefully more than will really happen, and then we're gonna back off to what's reasonable, and we'll know where the fixes need to be done now, which will save you money, because we're gonna fix it before it breaks and not fix the stuff that isn't gonna break. That's kind of the deal. And that helps with budget.
Yep.
A lot.
And that'll help us, well, you know, we're gonna be able to do a lot more conversions, having everything converted to the higher voltage that helps with, that's my understanding. It helps with outages, but like having that overarching, improved, more efficient system helps with this overall cost.
Lower your losses.
Yeah.
Because the higher voltage, we get to lower the current to serve the same energy need. And then you have less losses on the line, less losses in the transformers. Another part of it, we'll be looking at your power factor. Power factor is a hard thing to discuss, but it's something that can be adjusted where the load is causing the issue. And when we have that correct, you have less loss all the way back to the source. And so then the source folks, your MPA folks, aren't going to want to charge you as much money. And I know you do have a power factor requirement in your code for your users, but not everybody knows how to comply with that. You know, you turn on what you turn on, and you are what you are. But we can tell where a capacity limit should be put, or a voltage regulator would help.
Yep.
reduce the problems. The other side of that I mentioned would be outages. I don't know about you all, but I don't like outages. We like to reduce those to short and almost never is what we'd like to do. So we do coordination of your protections to make sure that if somebody up the street had the problem, but they're off to the side, it doesn't shut you off too when it doesn't need to. So there's all of that as well. So just better service, cheaper service, and putting the money in the right places. That's what the system plan is all about.
What do you recommend the ECA base rate go to?
Currently, I had it pretty much for Sean, I had guessed. I got 0.0903. It's gonna be the recommendation. At one point, I had a little bit higher than that, but I'm convinced that its point in life is to make sure that the utility doesn't get stuck with a whole lot of debt against what you have to buy for power. If you raise it too high, you don't collect enough and you end up being behind. And then that raises everybody's bill. So we don't want that. We'd rather have it a little bit at a time so that everything stays as average as possible.
Now that ECA base rate, because we're increasing our usage rates based on a projected increase in the wholesale cost. We only should increase that ECA base rate the next time we do a study, correct? It
So-
needs to stay at the 0.093.
The 0.0903.
It shouldn't increase like 3% every year or something.
No, it
It
should
needs to
stay
stay
flat.
there till we do another study.
Yeah, or if you find that your invoices are increasing at MPUA significantly, which I think you already felt that before I started this time. If you feel that again, it's a good time to take another look.
Or like if something major changes with the billing, like the stars align that their wheeling percentage increase went up at the time that we were looking into this. But if we weren't looking into this and MPUA came to us and said, we're increasing your wheeling cost by 23%, we would be like, okay, we probably need to do something different with the ECA base costs. But so something can trigger it like that to make us change it.
Now, obviously, when you change that, you're collecting less of it against it being higher. So it can trigger the need to also look at your rates
Yep.
and make sure that you're still good. And they don't have to increase as much as it needs to increase, but you may need a slight bump somewhere.
Thank you.
They are interrelated.
So for those of us that aren't a numbers guy like Bruce, are you saying that right now, even as high as our bill is, it should be higher,
Yeah,
correct?
yes, on
So-
residential.
Okay, that's, so all of you all out there,
I know,
it could be higher.
it could be.
I just mean, that's part of the reason why we're here, so
So,
just know that we're not paying what we should be paying now,
correct.
correct? Okay, thank you.
Now, it's not as big a swing as everyone feels, so. What the 4-year one, I do have it. I have that chart. I have the 3-year one, I think I have a 4-year one, that shows the difference. So if you kind of know how much use you have, I do have a chart with me that I will share with you all to use. That kind of gives the difference in your monthly bill due to that. So the only other thing that varies that I can't guess is what your actual usage was. But if you guess what your average is and look on the chart, it shows the difference. What we're talking about at 6% is less than $20. It's more like 12, 13 for the 1029. Higher, it's gonna be higher, less will be less. So it's not a drastic change that month, but over the year, it's different, right?
Right. All right, thank you.
I think one thing to talk about, I think that we should talk about is, the fact that we've taken out the 12-month
Yes.
rolling average from the ECA and whether or not that should be in there moving forward.
Okay, well, it's definitely an option. We looked at your historic, the last 2 years, and we were trying to decide what made sense as far as that, because it's a complication. It makes it harder to do the calculation and double check. And there is some hit to your cash flow, and I think your previous engineer said this too. But what it does, it takes the high and reduces a little bit, it takes your low though and brings it up a little bit. So if you had any negatives, it may never be negative or very slightly, and your positive gets squashed. Well, when you do that, it takes longer to catch up with what the bill did on your purchase power side. So you end up carrying more of that longer. And that means lost ability to do any kind of investing, to keep the utility stronger, which is typical. And things like that. So it's not a net zero. It actually is a little bit against the utility side. But when we did the analysis, the peak difference was only a 4%, which when you analyze the cost of the bill change, it's very small. And I don't think anyone's going to feel that part. It's something else going on that's causing issues. But we couldn't see for the trouble of doing it that it was enough change to really help that much.
So taking out the 12-month rolling average is not going to drastically hurt the utility or impact the customers.
Correct. And I would think long-term will probably help everyone.
Okay.
Because you'll be in a better position financially, to do the things that the money is collected for. And that will mean overall future, there'll be less raises to the rates, or less small ones, which is what we're all going for.
So do you propose any changes to the ECA structure, to the structure itself, or the formula beyond the changing the base rate a penny?
Currently, I think what we just did for temporary probably should be adopted as permanent, other than the change in the base. That's where we are. And we've looked at it for a month. I even had a second person run through it a couple different ways, just making sure I wasn't crazy.
Anyone else?
Does anyone have any thoughts on the 3-year proposal versus the 4-year proposal?
He said the 4-year would help us, right?
I believe the 4-year, here's the downside of the 4-year. The downside is you've got capital improvements that are waiting. However, I believe there are some funds available right now that might get us through that gap, maybe. That are for that purpose, right? So you're not going to recoup it and be where the utility should be for emergencies as quickly on the 4-year. Somewhere between the second and third year, you'll catch back up. On the 3-year one, you're in a lot better position from that. So from that perspective, the 3-year is better.
So the 3-year gets us to our financial goals quicker,
Somewhere between.
but it's less of an impact to the customer.
So that one is a little more comfortable in looking at the overall picture. You should be able to do your improvements that are needed sooner, easier. I won't say you can't do them on the 4, but it'll be a lot tighter.
Well, and there's a lot of importance weighing on us having those capital costs. Two things to it. The question that arises is how did we fall behind, but yet we still have the money in the account? The bank account did not bleed dry. We did not, when we did the last rate study, that was what we were told. We're we're bleeding out. We weren't bleeding out this time, but yet we have fallen behind. And I think the answer to that, you know, however we want to slice or dice it, but right now is the first time we've been fully staffed pretty much since I've been here in 5 years. So we haven't had the capacity to complete the projects that we've continuously planned to accomplish year after year after year. So glass half full, being fully staffed and not accomplishing the goals we put in front of us saved us from not going broke, quite frankly. And the ECA issue has helped us. Being frank, it did. So, but I mean, we still have these CIP goals that need to be accomplished. We're fully staffed now. We still have to check these boxes. We still have to move forward. We still have to make sure that we have a significantly more efficient utility and service provided to our customers than what we've provided over the past 5 to 10 years. And that's consistent electricity provided, less outages, shorter outages, so on and so forth. That is the goal. Reliability is the goal. We need to make sure we have the dollars in the account to be able to do that, especially now that we have the staff to do that. And we've made the conscious decision to spend more money, to contract out, to get the work done for the greater purpose and the goals set forth in our strategic plan. So my point is, it's important that we make sure we have the money in the account for these capital improvement opportunities. And then the other side is development. And that's something we've kind of, we haven't had annexations in the past. Now we have annexations coming to us. And the question is, from a development perspective, you know, these development opportunities have the ability to choose West Central Electric or City of Odessa. Nothing about our services, from our rates to our development structure, our fee structure, say, let's choose City of Odessa Electric. So if we want to be competitive, we're going to have to put forth the money. We're going to have to cover the cost of development and recoup those costs over the course of 30 years, which is what our competition is doing. But in order to do that, we have to have money in the bank to be able to pay for those development costs, those development prices and things, to be able to be competitive. Or we are not able to grow our utility, not able to increase the number of customers we have and spread the cost of service across more people than the people that we currently have today.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes, you may.
So over the last week, you had asked me about this topic. I did some digging and asked around for folks that have been around longer than I, in this business. And one of the things that some of our other municipals have done is they do the investment up front so that it's free to do the development for the developer.
Mm-hmm.
But then, no, it's not that way. I'm sorry, I misspoke. They have the developer put a fund in to the utility and they pay back out as those developments are finished. So they get reimbursed 100% at the end if everything they planned happens.
I think that's what Evergy does.
That was, yeah, and they were one of the ones that have used that a lot. But Munis also have done that. Unfortunately, co-op is the other way around. Since they can write it off for 30 years on a loan, they tend to do it for free. And as long as there's power coming in on that development, they roll with it. And if they don't get power there, then they go tear it down and get the money back as much as they can.
Either way, we're putting the costs on development and we're not being chosen. So therefore we're not growing our utility and just distributing the cost of service amongst more people as we continue to grow, because they're choosing other utilities over us. So We put 100% of the cost on the developer. So something to consider.
There's nothing to prevent us from starting with a 4-year plan, and if we see that we need to change the rates halfway through, we can change the rate.
Mhm. Anybody else?
We'll do better. We'll recoup it more quickly on the, right?
Yeah, you're dividing it over 3 years instead of 4.
That's.
You're just taking for those that have an increase, they're just getting that much less of an increase in their 1 year.
All right.
Does anyone have any other additional thoughts in regards to the 4 versus 3?
It's 4 versus 3, both have the split in the commercial large and small.
It's an option to do, but
Cause I really like that where it can help our smaller commercial developers. It cuts their base rate in half and drop their utility rate.
Yeah.
That would go a long way in helping a lot of our downtown businesses. I'm all for that.
Agree. So I do think a little bit of guidance or consensus from the board regarding the 3 to 4 would be helpful. So we know where to start our ordinance creation.
and we can
If-
do things like this, once I know. it's
Yeah.
coming.
Or if we want to circle back and have a more discussion-based conversation at our next meeting, I don't know that we'll pay to have David there, but we could have an open dialogue discussion at the next meeting. I know it's a lot to take in, but we do need to try to figure out a path forward.
Anybody have thought about where they are with this? Do you want 4, do you want 3, do you know that now, or do you want the extra time to digest this and pick it up on our next meeting?
I think we should take our time.
What do you think, Carl?
So what I heard was 3 years is better for our financial goals. Maybe I missed what the positive was for the.
Just gentler on the bills, on the
Okay.
bill changes. Which I think,
Gentler on the residents.
yeah,
Anything else, Sean? All right, our next scheduled meeting is Monday, March 23rd, at 6 p.m. Before we kind of wrap this up, I want to thank everybody that came out. Means a lot. You got an education, so did we, and please know that we are every bit as concerned about all this as you are. And we want people a good end of this. Alderman requests for new items. Anybody have anything they want to put on our future agenda? Alderman Polson.
I do, I would like to put on, maybe not necessarily next agenda, it sounds like we're gonna be busy, but I've been contacted by the citizens on the corner of Russell and Marlowe about ongoing issues with parking, with advanced industry employees and such, so we could get that put on the agenda.
Any objections?
I got the same email she did.
No objections, we'll make it so.
I have a question or comment. So we had previous discussions with them about potentially private driving that intersection. Would the consensus be that we bring that before the board? That option?
I don't think we've heard anything before.
I think it's more.
It's fine.
I think it's worth a discussion, but there's.
Discussion
things to be
first.
discussed, yeah.
Okay, discussion first.
There's points that need to be discussed about that before we.
Okay.
All right, any other requests? All right, we will be adjourning to closed session. I take a motion to adjourn to closed session.
Make a motion to adjourn to closed session. In pursuit to RSM 610.021, number 1, legal actions, causes of actions, litigation, or confidential attorney-client communication, and pursuant to RSMO 610.021, number 12, sealed bids and related documents until bids are opened, and sealed proposals and related documents or any documents related to a negotiated contract until a contract is executed or all proposals are rejected.
And a second,
Second.
motion and a second, roll call.
Aldermember Kerrigan,
Yes.
Crabtree's not here, Olson,
Yes.
Whitsitt,
Yes.
Clacty,
Yes.
Star.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.